What is good, all of our listeners and viewers? Welcome to another episode of Games and Groceries. My name is Adam.
And I'm Liz.
And I quit my job today. Woo! We are here with episode 91, where we're going to be talking about are gamers actually moral beings? But first, we've got some segments for you. Yes, we do. We've got some segments. So, as I said, I quit my job because the podcast is going so well. I quit my job.
No. You actually quit your job 2 weeks ago. Today was just your last day.
No, the podcast just blew up, and that's what.
Oh, okay.
That's exactly. Don't pull back the curtain to our listeners.
Honey, we already told them this.
I did?
Yes.
Oh, interesting. What a twist. Yeah, so I quit my job because I found a new job where Liz works. And so today was my last day at that job, so I'll be starting. Actually, as you're listening, I'm in my new, hopefully permanent job.
Hopefully.
But yeah, so, when we first moved out here, and I quit my youth ministry job, I had to find any job that would
get us here.
Like, honestly, I had to. And so I first worked at the grocery store in the meat cutting department, and that was terrible. And so I went to my current,
the one you finished today.
The one I finished today, which was a diner, and I worked there for 3 months until I found a job that will sustain us for the long run. Yeah, our pineapple lights are on.
I know. There was a hair on it. It was gonna bother me.
And so now I'm at this current job with Liz, being a salesperson.
Yeah, he's gonna come with me to work every day. I'm the office manager. So, it's like Jim and Pam.
Oh yeah, actually, yeah. Oh yeah.
Woo! Goals.
Because I'm a salesman and
I'm the office manager.
Oh yeah, it is exactly like Jim and Pam.
I mean, she was the secretary, but I'm also kind of secretary.
No, she became an office manager.
She did become the office manager.
Yeah, she did. Interesting. There we go.
Jim and Pam now. You may now refer to us as Jim and Pam.
Jim and Pam. PB&J. What a waste. What a waste. That's my Kevin.
I got to tell my sisters this. They love The Office.
My goodness. But yeah, so I'm excited to be that. Liz, how you doing?
I'm good. I had a very productive day today.
Yeah.
I woke up. I caught up on Grey's Anatomy. I watched an episode of House Hunter's Renovation.
Oh.
And then I cleaned the bathroom. I slept and mopped the floor. I wiped down the sink, and I didn't do the mirror because we don't have Windex. That's something we should.
We don't have Windex?
Nope.
Oh. We also don't have Pledge. We gotta go get Pledge.
We're doing great.
Yeah.
And then I scrubbed down the shower.
Yeah.
It was productive. I did that, and then after my shower, I took the dog, and then I did my makeup, and then I painted my nails and watched Degrassi, and then you came home, and then we went out shopping, but we didn't buy anything, so that was useless.
Yeah.
But then we had Wawa.
We did have Wawa.
And then we watched our movie minutes, and now we're here. I had a quite productive day. Also, by the way, the dustpan may or may not have touched your toothbrush, but I rinsed it in hot water. Not boiling, but I in lukewarm water.
So before we get started, we just want to remind everybody that we're on social media, on Twitter at Gaming Groceries. I'm at Ace the Grocer, and you can also follow us on Instagram. You don't matter because, excuse me.
Because I forgot to put your toothbrush back before I swept.
What's your Twitter handle?
I'm at Journey First.
You can also follow us on Instagram. Games and Groceries, all one word. We can check out behind the scenes photos and some gaming memes every now and again, and as well as some updates about the channel. So definitely follow us on social medias at Gaming Groceries, Games and Groceries, all one word. We're also on Facebook. Definitely check us out on Facebook. But you can definitely check out our website, gamesgroceries.com, where you can listen to all of the podcasts from the website, as well as find out where you can listen to the audio versions of the website. And if you're not yet, if you're on YouTube watching us, or you're listening to us on iTunes, definitely do this. Go on YouTube, search for our channel, Games and Groceries. We're pretty much the only one with a pineapple as the logo.
Because we're different.
We are different. But definitely subscribe to us if you haven't already. Hit that notification bell so that you know when all these podcasts come out, as well as our Saturday morning videos that come out every other Saturday. I'm not the proudest of my script for this one. I didn't really love what I wrote, but I still wanted to put it out there, you know? But I love how the way you edited the video. It's fantastic. I just don't like my script writing, but I love my script for this next video that we're doing.
Yeah.
Why Life is Strange is Great.
Yeah.
And I love the way I wrote the script for this one. So hopefully we're improving on that front. But yeah, definitely check out that video if you haven't already. And by the way, review us on iTunes. So let's just get started. With all that said and done, let's just jump into our first segment.
Movie Minutes.
Movie Minutes is a segment that we talk about the movies that we watched in the past week, whether it be on Netflix, Hulu, Amazon Prime, or in theaters, and we like to rate it and recommend it or don't recommend it. And this week we actually filmed, or we didn't film, we watched a film that just came out this past Friday on Netflix, which is called All the Bright Places, which is, of course, a pun on All the Right Places. But instead of the word right, it's bright.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, all the right places, but like all the bright places. So, it's on Netflix. It just came out this past Friday. It's based on a novel. It stars Elle Fanning, which is, of course, Dakota Fanning's sister, and Justice Smith, who is not Will Smith's son. No, that's Jaden Smith. Justice Smith is actually the main character in Detective Pikachu. But yeah, opening thoughts.
I enjoyed it. It was a little sad. Like it just like it made me sad. Like it just not that like I mean, of course, things in it were sad, but it just kind of like made me feel like down. By the end of it, like when we were prepping for this, I'm just like, I feel sad.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Like I wasn't just sad about the movie. It just made my whole emotions sad. It was a decent movie. There were some things that were like, you were more vocal about how bad, like what was wrong with it. But I mean, I agree in some parts, but I'm like, sometimes I like those movies where it's just I don't know. I didn't mind it that much. You didn't like it as much as
no, but we're gonna get into that though.
But I mildly enjoyed it. If don't watch it when you're already sad because that's just not going to lead to a good place.
So sad.
But it's not a bad movie. I enjoyed it. If you want to watch it, you can go watch it.
So I want to get into my 3 notes here. As the movie begins, you start to get this sense that the writing is incredibly reliant on exposition. Like it's very reliant on exposition. I don't know who wrote this. I didn't look at that credits, and I'm not going to name names and say like, dude, come on. But it's very on the nose. However, you've got some killer performances in this. You can tell that. By the way, Keegan-Michael Key is in this. Luke Wilson's in this. Oh man, there's a couple other people that I can't think of their names. But they give the performances that really like overdo the writing. Like it outweighs the writing. Yeah. I'm not saying it's bad writing. I'm saying it's very generic, vanilla, sad story, romantic kind of writing. But the performances are incredible.
It's similar to, I think, Fault in Our Stars.
Yeah.
Like that feel to it. I think similar writing. I think Fault in Our Stars was a little more powerful.
Yeah, I agree.
But it's like a low grade Fault in Our Stars. And
also, both movies were based on novels.
Yes, except for I'm pretty sure Fault in Our Stars was more popular because it was named after its book.
Well, yeah. I'm not sure what this book was called, but what this movie was based on. But yeah, so that's my big gripe here is that, well, not my big gripe, actually. There's a lot of big gripes I had with this movie. But it's very reliant on exposition in that way. But however, like you get to see the performances of Justice Smith especially, Justice Smith and Elle Fanning together,
Yeah.
they had great chemistry. Fantastic
Fanning,
chemistry.
I don't think is talked about enough.
No, because she's overshadowed by Dakota.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
But, and I mean, she is definitely being talked about more and more because she is doing more and more roles.
Yeah.
But I think she's one to definitely watch. She's going to be one of those people I think she's going to be great, like get greater as she gets older. Like she's going to be talked about.
Yeah, no, I think Elle Fanning really dominated this movie in terms of her performance. And that goes into my second note is that the writing is not my favorite. It's very generic, very vanilla. But however, the cinnamon buns. The cinematography of this film, the score especially.
I love the music in this movie.
I think the movie is the strongest. And there's a couple scenes where it does this, where there's no dialogue and the score takes over the scene and you get to see their body language. Like the performances, the way the direction of the cameras are going. There's some times where I'm just like, that could have been a poster, the way it's filmed. I think the movie is the strongest, where the movie, the movie score, I wanted to say, the movie score takes over, the camera angles take over, the body language of the actors are taking over. I think that's where the movie is the strongest. Do you agree, or do you kind of like?
No, I agree. I think they used it a lot to tell, like, to further the story and tell.
Remember the graffiti scene?
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about. Like, to not get in spoilers, but
yeah, no, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I think it was the strongest on that aspect. So if you're looking for a movie like that, I think there's some really strong points on that front, which is why I gave it a higher score than I was going to, because the art of the film is fantastic.
And it's a Netflix movie, but you can tell it was like indie.
Oh yeah, I don't know. Was it? I guess so.
It had an indie vibe to it, at least.
It had an indie vibe.
I feel like that's.
Well, it can't be.
That's what I mean. It's a Netflix movie, but it had an indie vibe. So either it's an indie movie or it was inspired.
Yeah.
It had an indie feel to it, and I think that's like indie movies. That's more popular, where you see it focus more on the art, the cinematography.
It definitely had a feel of that. I understand what you're going with.
Yeah, you get what I mean.
I get you. And I want to finally close with my notes is that as frustrated as I was with the writing, I was more frustrated as, someone who has dealt with these kind of things before. It has a lot to do with mental health, and it's very strong in that message about mental health.
Different types of mental health too. They did try.
I'm not going to go into spoiler. I don't want to talk about what they talk about because it is kind of on that spoilery kind of discussion. So I don't want to say anything because I do want you to see this movie. Don't take my word for it. Like go and see this movie and judge for yourself, which is why I'm not going to be talking about. This isn't
even really Adam's type of movie.
No,
either. Like I think that has a lot to do with that. It's
so frustrating.
It's definitely one that I would have dragged you to go see. When we were in high school.
But it does deal with mental health, and as frustrated as I was with the way they treated mental health, there were some things where I'm just like, you got over that real quick.
Yeah.
And there's some gaslighting in this movie if you're sensitive to that. I don't know. Just forget it what I'm saying. Anyways, as frustrated as I was, it had a significant message at the end for caring for others in times of need, in like dark times. And I think at the end of this movie, you knew what the message was.
Yeah.
You weren't confused. You weren't like saying like, what was I supposed to feel? It had a significant message on you got to be there for somebody. And I think that's what the message was.
Through all the times.
Through all, like every time. Not even just mental health, but just you need to be there for people.
Yeah.
So it was clear what it was clear what the message was.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
With myself.
Good job.
Let's go into our final our ratings. Liz, what did you give it out of 10?
I gave it a 7.5 because, like I said, I enjoyed it. there were some parts that I did agree with Adam with the way they handled mental health. It was like they talked about it, but they didn't talk about it. And
you know what it reminded me of? Speaking of the Fannings, Dakota Fannings,
Please Stand By.
Yes, Please Stand By, where they talked about autism.
That was really good.
The way they handled autism was kind of similar how they handled mental health in this movie.
I don't think so.
I think so.
I disagree.
I agree with myself.
I think they handled autism better in Please Stand By than they handled mental health in this. You loved Please Stand By.
Yeah, but here's the thing though, is that like
we're not talking about that.
Okay.
We're not talking about that.
Yeah.
We're talking about this movie.
Okay,
You do that to me all the time.
7.5.
I give it 7.5 because I do agree that they just kind of skimmed the surface of mental health without really diving into it. And if you're gonna, in this day and age, if you're gonna talk about mental health, or don't. But I enjoyed it. It was a decent movie. If someone said, "Oh, I wanted to watch it," but like, "Oh yeah, you should watch it then." Like, if it seems interesting to you, then watch it. If it doesn't seem interesting to you, then it's probably something you can pass on. Yeah. It's not something that we're like, no, you have to watch it. It's something like if you were interested or if you read it and it sounds good, go ahead, watch it.
I agree. My final ranking of this movie was 5.5. It was going to be a 4 because of how frustrated I was.
You really didn't enjoy this movie.
I did not, but...
He was like sitting there complaining the whole time. I was like, all right, I actually kind of like it.
I hated it. But I love the art behind the movie. I love the performances. I love the direction of the movie. I love how by the end of the movie, I knew exactly how I was going to feel. Yeah. Like there was no confusion. There was no just thinking about like, what did you want me to feel? Yeah, which like,
you've definitely watched movies that were like that.
But it's very clear in what it was trying to tell me without trying to be blunt about it. Yeah. It wasn't so on the nose where you're like, oh, okay. You definitely could tell what they were trying to get you to feel. Yeah. But so that's why I gave it above average. Like just above average.
Just a smidgen.
Just a smidgen above average. So yeah. I agree with Liz. If you're interested in it, it's on Netflix. Go check it out. I don't recommend it. I recommend it-ish. You know, would you recommend it?
You recommend it for the right person.
I recommend it for the right person.
This isn't your type of movie, so of course you're not going to recommend it to someone who thinks like you.
Yeah. 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 Do you recommend it?
I already said yes. My gosh.
So
you
again,
wear me out.
So again, the movie's called All the Bright Places. It's on Netflix right now. It just came out this past Friday. So if you're interested in it, if you got a Netflix account, check it out. So with that said and done, let's just jump into our second segment.
Top 3 Gaming News.
The top 3 gaming news is the gaming news that we saw in the past week, and we like to rank it 3, 2, 1 just to give you a condensed version of what's going on in the games industry. From the past week, though.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. Like last week. You know, like that, not this week.
From last Saturday when we recorded to this Saturday.
Yeah, like the last week.
Yeah.
Yeah. By the way, if you're watching this on YouTube, can you see that these are pineapples?
I don't think you can tell they're pineapples because the green.
Yeah, I'm looking at the viewfinder.
But we told them that it's pineapples, and you might be able. I don't know. You might be able to see them after editing.
Maybe.
Who knows?
Who knows?
We'll find out later.
We'll find out during editing. But anyways, so
they're pineapples. Don't worry.
They're pineapples. So yeah, let's just jump into our number 3 gaming news, and this came out this past Monday. So it's been reported on over and over again. You probably already heard about this already. It's been like just there, but I still think it's really newsworthy. Is that the Xbox Series X, not the Xbox One X, Xbox Series X, which is the stupidest name ever.
It is.
But they dropped their specs about what it's going to be. It's got all the teraflops. It's got all the teraflops.
Really? We couldn't think of a better name for teraflop.
No.
Like the person who when they first made like the teraflop, we couldn't think of a better name.
I don't think he gave a flop about what to name it.
Apparently.
But yeah, so it's got all it's got twice the teraflops, which is the floating computer. I don't know what it is. Stop it, Adam. I read it. What
it's
it was.
It's a thing that's in technology stuff.
I read it. I keep reading about it. I still don't know what it is. Don't explain it to me in the comments because I'm not going to understand you. But it's got twice the power of the Xbox One X. But what's most important about these spec drops is that there's something called. There's two things that really stick out to me, and that's instant resume, and I'm going to talk about this later. Smart delivery, which I'm so excited about, by the way. So excited. So this is coming from Larry Herb about the reboot or about the quick recovery for the game. And he says this: I had to reboot because of a system update. And then I went back into the game and went right back to it, reveals Herb in the podcast. So it survives a reboot. That will be useful for any dashboard updates that would usually interrupt any progress in the game. And it sets the stage for encouraging players of player habits of simply switching off a console and not worrying about save points. So that's really cool.
Mm-hmm.
And apparently you can do this with multiple games too. So the fact that it survives an update. Like currently right now when you're on the Xbox and let's say I'm playing a game of Rainbow Six Siege, right?
Yeah.
And then I forget why I did this, but why did I do this? Anyways, but I'll go into another game just to check something. And then I'll be like, okay, I don't really care about that. And so I'll go back into Rainbow Six Siege, hoping I'll be back on the main menu. But no, it closes the game out.
Yeah.
And it's just very frustrating and annoying. Whereas this one, it's just like, boom, you're right back in it.
Okay.
You're not going to...
I understand now.
Oopsies. Yeah, you're not going to be on a multiplayer. If you're in the middle of a siege match.
Well, yeah,
That's pretty cool, right?
Yeah, that is cool. I just didn't know what we were talking about.
Oh, yeah. I didn't.
Well, not that. I mean, I didn't understand what this, what he's talking about. I didn't understand it.
Yeah.
Basically, because.
But no, if you're in the middle of a game and you reboot your system for an update, once it's done reboots, you go back into the game and you're right back where you were.
That's nice.
That's really cool. I like that. What's even more exciting, though, is this smart delivery system. Excuse me. Oops.
Wow.
Whoopsies. And I think this is going to be the future of Game Pass right here. If you have Game Pass, right, you're going to have it with the Xbox Series X. But what's more important about this is smart delivery. So let's say Halo Infinite comes out, right?
Yeah.
And let's say you purchase Halo Infinite like your boy will. I don't care if it's on Game Pass. Your boy's getting Halo Infinite.
Okay.
It's going to happen.
Okay.
So you download it. And let's say I still have my Xbox One X like a chump. And I download the game. It's going to give me the Xbox One version of the game. Now, once I upgrade to the Xbox Series X, because I'm a chump, if I re-download Halo Infinite, it's going to give me the Series X version.
Nice.
So you don't have to repurchase a game. Let's say, in that transition of different systems, you bought one game, but then you go over to the next generation and you want the better version of it.
Yeah.
It's going to give you that version.
Yeah, I understand.
Same thing with Cyberpunk 2077. If you buy it one way, it's going to smart deliver it to another way.
Nice.
I like that.
Yeah, it's good.
That's consumer friendly.
Yes, it is.
So, anything else about that?
I like that it's not that that shows that they're not money hungry. Because this past year, we've seen that so much where developers and people in the game industry just want the money. They really don't care about the gamers until we complain about it too much, and then they want to be angry at us, whatever.
Sure.
But they just want money. So it's nice to see that that's not what they're thinking of. They are thinking of the consumer and what's best for the consumer and for the company in the long run, and not just the money aspect.
Yeah.
So that's nice.
It is nice. So going to our number 2 gaming news, this is about Mass Effect, and we're not going to talk too much about this because it's actually going to go into our big topic.
Yeah.
So apparently like a mass majority of people played the good guy in Mass Effect, which is crazy. So if you're not familiar with Mass Effect's morality system, there's a Paragon and a Renegade. Paragon being the light side, the good person, the good little boy. Or you got the Renegade, which is the evil side, the Sith, the bad boy, the dog that goes to the trash and doesn't apologize for it. That Renegade.
You're weird.
But apparently, according to developer John Ebinger. Good job, Adam. That's probably still wrong.
It's close, though.
It is close. He actually revealed something about this system, right? This is quote tweeting like a little meme on Twitter. And then he said, yup, something like 92% of Mass Effect players were Paragon, the good people. And we put a lot of work into the Renegade content too, with a frowny face. 92%. That's insane, right?
It is crazy.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
It's
especially
insane.
When you think of how popular like Mass Effect is. Like a lot of people play that. So that's a big percentage of a lot of people.
Yeah, it's no small game. It's no like cult classic. It's Mass Effect.
Yeah.
A lot of people played Mass Effect. And he said that not just like 75%, 92%
Yeah.
were Paragon.
Almost 100.
Yeah.
Like that's an A.
And I think this is important, and we're going to talk about this later in our big topic, and I think this is important to understand that this is a huge building block into making the mainstream of gaming, like into the mainstream. And this kind of proves a point that like gamers aren't in it to be evil. Gamers aren't playing games to be an evil person.
Yeah.
And I think we're going to talk about that a little bit later, but I think this has a lot to do with revealing about gamers' morality when they play games. This could be a crazy coincidence too. I write that down in my notes too. But it's kind of crazy to even think about. Like, forget the number 92. Only 8% played evil.
Yeah.
8%. And that's insane.
Yeah.
8%. But again, don't want to go too much into this because this is going to be our topic for today's episode. But I thought that was pretty cool.
It is. It's very cool.
Anything else about this that strikes you as interesting?
Well, I mean, we'll talk about it more later.
Yeah. But yeah, it's really, really cool. But by the way, I want to read the quote tweet. Like, it's so funny. Developer, in this game, you can be the bad guy. Me. Wow, cool. Me, also me. Spares and forgives enemies, refuses to steal, selects the friendliest dialogue options. Developer, this is supposed to be the escapist fantasy about violating societal norms. Me, I'm a nice villain. So that's funny.
Yeah.
Let's go into our last gaming news. The number one gaming news is that about GDC, the Game Developers Conference, postponed.
Yep.
The whole conference is postponed. And this is a big conference. This is as big as PAX East. This is as big as PAX South. This is as big as PAX West.
All PAX.
Might I say, big as PAX North. I don't think there's a PAX North. But it is pretty big. It's a pretty big conference. And now, what's interesting is that this has to do with the coronavirus. And it's all started because Microsoft and Epic actually pulled out of GDC because of coronavirus fears. And then
they're just like, never mind.
Well, no. Like, even more companies. Like, I showed you that still image that Sony pulled out. Kojima Productions got out of GDC. Unity got out of GDC. All these massive companies, all for the same reason, was coronavirus.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of people are starting to wonder, like, is it because, America has a lot of it? I've read reports that it's very minimal chance that you'll get coronavirus, but what's the best way to spread viruses?
Pack everyone into one room.
Well, also that, but like other companies are going in from China, from Asia.
On the planes.
that's the quickest way to spread these viruses is that bring it on a plane with you, ship it over like an Amazon package.
Oh, jeez.
So that's the fear of the coronavirus here. And a lot of companies are kind of getting nervous and saying, like, listen, it's not worth the risk. We're not going to do it. I'm sorry.
So I bet tickets are pretty cheap now.
For planes?
Yeah, on an airplane.
I thought you were talking about GDC. I'm like,
No.
yeah, I think the GDC tickets are pretty cheap.
No, I think, like, I imagine that airplane tickets are probably pretty cheap right now.
Yeah, pretty much. But yeah, so a lot of people pulled out of it. So now GDC, and I want to read their quote here. They say they said this. After close consultation with our partners in the game development industry and community around the world, we've made a difficult decision to postpone the Game Developers Conference this March. Having spent the past year preparing for the show with our advisory boards, speakers, exhibitors, and event partners, we're generally upset and disappointed not to be able to host you at this time. And there was no new date given, so it's pretty much canceled.
Yeah, it's probably just canceled for this year.
Well, they say postponed later on, and I don't think they give like a new date.
Well, they probably don't want to give a date until after the coronavirus is blown over.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of people are speculating, like, will this affect E3? Is this going to affect the release of next-gen consoles? Because there's a lot of rumors going around that at least PS5 is going to be kind of off the radar. Someone made a good point, and I really should write this down because I don't want to like steal quotes and I want to know who said it, but someone really made a really good point. Though it wasn't me, but people are saying that, like, is it really that bad that coronavirus could just delay a next-gen system? And it really has to do with the manufacturing in China.
Well, yeah, because it started in China. China's still struggling with it, and that's where all of the consoles are made. Oh,
I was listening to the CADcast when I heard this, and they made a good point. That's like, even if one part in one factory is mishandled or quarantined because of the coronavirus, that puts off the entire production of that system. So if you can't get that one part,
their schedule is completely thrown.
Exactly. So it could delay the next generation.
Yeah. It's just, and you know what? It's probably going to go down in gaming history that that all of this happened this year. It's going to go down in probably world history, but
really, yeah,
it's still also playing a huge part in video game history that people not in the gaming culture will notice.
Yeah, like it's going to go into my kids' history books that Adam couldn't play Halo Infinite because of coronavirus.
No, it's going to go in their history books that the coronavirus probably wiped out half of the country.
That's terrifying.
Yeah, it's probably going to happen, though.
Wow. Go you. But anyways,
I told you that movie made me depressed.
But yeah, so it's kind of crazy that a whole conference was postponed, possibly canceled, and a lot of fears are coming in through the future of E3 this year. Due to the coronavirus. But yeah, I want to hear your thoughts. If you're watching us on YouTube, definitely give us your thoughts down in the comments down below. Firstly, about the Microsoft with the specs and smart delivery. What do you think about that? Do you think that's a really good consumer friendly decision? What do you think about this whole reboot thing, that you can reboot your whole system and go back into the game? Write your thoughts down in the comments down below. Talk about Mass Effect and the 92% that are being good people. Are they actually good boys, or is this kind of like, a mishandled data point? Write your comments down below. And finally, with GDC, with coronavirus, do you think it's going to be like incredibly dismantling the games industry in terms of like getting rid of E3 and possibly the next generation of game consoles? Write your comments down below in the comments section. But yeah, so I think this is a good time to jump into our last segment, don't you think?
I think so.
So let's do it.
Okay.
Let's go into our final segment.
Coffee time.
Every single week here in the Games Groceries podcast, we like to have a little gaming discussion, kind of like female gamers or game preservation, and we like to talk about it for half an hour or so in the style of a coffee table talk. Remember when we used to, like when we first started this show, and we had what do we call it? The first segment, and we had those little cards of questions.
Table talk topics.
Table talk topics.
I said table talk topics.
Yeah, and I was like, table talk topic. Go back
I
to.
miss them. Where'd that? I think we still have those cards.
I think
in
we
the game closet.
Yeah, they're in the game closet. Yeah. But yeah, go back to our like first episodes, like at least the first 20 episodes, and we had a first segment called Table Talk Topics, and we had these cards of table topics, and we just pick a random question and we just talk about it for 10 minutes.
Unless it was really like untalkable.
Yeah, like there was some
that were like, we can't really talk about this.
Yeah, or they were just yes or no questions.
Yeah, I'm like, this isn't a table topic.
So that was before movie minutes.
Yeah.
But
they were fun. We should do those sometimes. We just sprinkle them in.
Well, we are going to come to episode 100 soon, and that's going to be a Ask Us Anything.
So maybe we'll sprinkle some of those in.
But yeah, so episode 100 is coming up, and the big topic will be about Ask Us Anything. So if you have any questions, you want to do that, don't write yet, because I'm going to forget them. Wait till episode.
Please don't write anything yet. Wait until he tells you to write it.
Probably episode 95. I'll tell you to like email me.
You get 5 weeks.
Yeah, 5 weeks to think of something. But yeah, so this week's topic is going back on the number 2 gaming news about Mass Effect, and 92% of players are playing the good guy.
Yeah.
So let's talk about this. First and foremost, with so many politicians coming out there, including Joe Biden, which, okay, so
don't get me started on that.
Well, there was a video recommended.
I'm gonna take your pen away again.
No, please, no. Oh. But there was a video recommended. I haven't watched him too much lately. Don't write on my hand. With Steven Crowder, and he made a good point that Joe Biden might have dementia, like early onset dementia.
Oh, well, that's terrifying. Isn't he running for president?
Yeah. Like he made a good point. And I was like, I thought he was just like kind of like jabbing at him, like, okay,
yeah,
dude, because he's a Democrat, you're Steven Crowder, blah, blah, blah. But I was like, dang, he's making a good point. Anyways.
I wanted to write on myself. I just didn't figure out what I wanted to write yet.
Dang it. Anyways, but with many politicians, not just Joe Biden, by the way, not just ripping on him, but many politicians saying that like video games and the industry needs to be controlled because video games encourage violence. What do we think about that? Is that believable?
I don't think it's believable.
Yeah.
And I never did, because I mean, and I said this when we covered the Joe Biden quote, or story.
Mm-hmm.
Video games, when they're violent, it helped me release that anger. And I think that's true for a lot of people. Like a lot of people who feel the need to be violent usually have a release that's not on another person. Yeah. Like they scream into pillows, they box, they write. They have an outlet for their anger, not on other people.
And that's the thing. I don't like how video games are the only kind of scapegoat into like, oh, it encourages violence and blah, blah, blah. And they keep bringing up.
You're looking at the pen.
Yay, my pen's back. But yeah, so I can't stand why they keep coming up with like, oh, the Columbine shooters, they liked video games.
They were teenage boys. Of course they liked video games.
There's a movie about the Columbine shooting, by the way. And there's a scene with the Columbine shooters that they're playing video games, and the line is quite literally, oh man, I love shooting things. Oh, wouldn't this be great to do in real life? Like, oh my
I watched
God.
a documentary of, I think it was the boys actually filming themselves. Like I watched that.
Yeah.
And I don't remember the whole thing. There might have been a part where they were playing video games, but like that is not how it happens. It's not how it works.
But that's the thing. Like,
this is my opinion, and we might. I don't know if people disagree with this, but whenever I hear about shootings and they want to blame video games, there is clearly something else going on in that person's head.
Yeah. No,
like it's a mental illness. It's no well-minded person is going to go somewhere and shoot a bunch of people for no reason, even if there is a reason. No one in their right mind does that. Whether they knew about it or not, there's clearly something not right in their mind.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with how someone else treated them. I mean, yes, them being bullied or things like that can play a factor, but there's still something else that's not connecting, because not everyone resorts to that. So I hate when these things happen and they want to blame something or someone. It's no one's fault. Something was clearly wrong with this person in their head. Things weren't connecting. It's no one's fault. It's not video games' fault. It's not their parents' fault. It's not the bully's fault. It's just they needed help and they didn't have help. That's it. Yeah. And that's my feelings And I think
that goes into our movie minutes, all the bright places. There's definitely some themes to that.
Yeah.
But yeah, and that goes into my second point, where there's so many studies that came out, like incredible sources, that video games are not the source for violence. No. In fact, MatPat did a study about how Fortnite players, I think it was about Fortnite players, where his findings actually said that the only people who play aggressive in video games like Fortnite, if they play aggressively, it's because they were aggressive in the first place.
Yeah.
You're just playing
They're already an aggressive person.
Yeah.
If you're a jerk in real life, then you're a jerk in a video game.
And that's the thing, is that like if there's something like mentally off, they're going to be playing a video game mentally off.
Exactly. Like, and I mean, I play video games like I am in real life. And I was going to bring this up anyway. It's that when I play video games, it's not that I choose good or evil. For me, usually play how I feel that person's personality is. Yeah, yeah. And I think you would agree that that's how I am in real life. I try to imagine, well, what's this person going through? Why are they this way? Like, yeah. I always try and think of it.
You live in the gray area.
I do, and I
you swim in it.
It's wonderful. But I believe people can change. I want to know people's personalities. Why are they this way? Like, what makes people act that way? And I'm always putting myself in someone else's shoes in a fight, or when I'm looking at things and thinking of things, I try and put myself in their shoes. So, and that's how I play video games. So you're going to play video games how you are in real life most of the time.
Yeah, and there's many studies that just found that. Yeah.
If you watched Adam play Life is Strange for the first time, none of you did except for me. Yeah. You can tell Adam has no idea how girls are.
I'm very black and white.
How it works.
Yeah.
Because you would make decisions. I'm like, that's not what they would do. I'm like, they're best friends. That's not the decision that she would make.
And that's the thing, is that like, I think that there's been a lot of studies that have come out and have had prominent results saying that, like, listen, like going to politicians and saying, like, listen, this is not how video games like occur. Like, this is not how gamers are. You don't like go up to gamers and say like, oh, is it because of video games that you're so violent? When in all actuality, it's something else that's going on.
They're violent outside of video games. You just don't care until they do something illegal.
But then you have things like Gamergate, where it's just like saying that like gamers are super toxic people that will they're very misogynistic in a way of like girls can't be gamers and all this. Yeah. Toxic gamer culture, and studies have come out and just saying like no, and there's this whole battle in between, like, well, a study will say this, but blah blah blah, and crap like that. However, let's go back into this news piece where it could have been like a throwaway tweet and just saying like, oh, you know, that sucks that, you know, he made a lot of content for Renegade, but like, let's really deep dive into that. Is that he said that 92%. And I think this story is really, really, really excellent in terms of the building blocks into putting video games onto the mainstream, is because a study can, you can argue against it and blah, blah, blah. It's like, well, what factors did you put in? What's the control group? What's the control group actually like? How many video... What this study, like what this statistic has is gamers who are just playing a video game.
Yeah, they're just playing the game.
They're just playing the game. And I think that's the most natural study you can give. And I think this kind of really, I don't think this like is definitively proving the point that all gamers have a moral system and that they're good people. But it's a really, really great statistic to have. What do you think?
No, I agree that it's a good statistic to have on our side because it means that people are choosing to be good.
Yeah.
In a game. And I know even people who choose to be bad, I know you do that sometimes. You're not a bad person, but you choose to go against the grain of what the story wants you to do because you just want to see what it does.
Yeah.
You want to explore the story from that point of view.
Yeah.
You know, so I mean, and that couldn't even be part of it, is that it doesn't even have to be their personality. It's just they want to see what the story's like from that perspective.
Exactly.
So even if a lot of people did choose the villain in the game, that doesn't always mean that they're a villainous person.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Like when he said that only 8% and he said that he put in a lot of effort into the Renegade system, that actually made me want to play Mass Effect in the Renegade because I want to see that content.
Yeah.
I really do. I appreciate that kind of writing, and I'm probably going to be pushing it up to 9% now. But that's the thing, is that like it really puts in perspective what gamers are actually doing when going in game. Like it's not just like this intrusive study where you have to play video games this often, you have to play this certain amount of games. You're just playing games and let's see how you do. And I think there's been other games that have done this. Most notably in the Dementia Factor, there was a mobile game. And I can't remember what it was. But it actually took...
Yeah, I do remember talking about
Remember that with the ship? And...
I don't remember the game, but I remember talking about it.
And it was amazing. It actually gathered data from that game into a study about, you know, not curing dementia, but treating dementia.
Yeah.
And it was really excellent in that way. But again, I think going back into this, I think that's a great study to have. To just say, like, you know, how are gamers just playing video games naturally in the wild, would you say?
It's like it just shows people that like when gamers are just playing and left to their own devices, they're still even subconsciously choosing the good side. Like there might be gamers who don't realize that they're making those choices, but they do eventually end up making that definitive choice to be good, whether it's conscious or subconscious. They are being good in a game. So how can they be a horrible person if they're choosing to be good in games?
So, I if you follow us on Twitter or Instagram or Facebook, I'll ask you a question, and we'll pick some of our favorites to read on the podcast, and I'll ask you a question about what we're going to talk about, and I want to hear your thoughts and put you in the conversation. I asked you on Twitter, do you play good or evil in games with morality? And I have two comments here. You want to read the first one from Absolute Prodigy, who was our first guest on the podcast, by the way.
Haven't heard from him in a while.
Yeah.
I mean, you talk to him every day, but I don't.
Yeah, he's my boy.
But Absolute Prodigy says, good run first, then evil run after, which is kind of what you do. Also, Infamous was my first game where I legit replayed to do an evil run and ish. It's so hard to be bad.
Yeah.
And it is. There are times where you're playing games and you want to make the bad choice just to see what happens. Because, like, I know I do that. Like, I usually play how I think that person would be in real life. But there are times where I'm just like, but I want them to do this. So
yeah.
And do it.
And that's the thing, is that, like, there's some times where I want to play even Skyrim. Like as like an evil overlord and like have like all these jerk choices, but it's so difficult.
It is. And like also when I'm playing as like how I think they would do, if I think that they would be mean in that situation, I'd be like, okay, it's gonna be bad.
Yeah.
And I do it regretfully, but I do it because that's how I think they would. So I don't know what I would end up being classified as if they studied my video games.
They would classify you as swimming in the gray area. I'm
gonna do a painting. The whole canvas is just gonna be gray.
Gray. Well, your favorite color is gray. One of
them.
What do you color everything?
Navy blue.
And
Black and gray.
Black and gray.
Or natural wood.
My goodness. So Commander Nikki on Twitter also says this. When I ask, do you play games good or evil? She says this. I usually play them how I feel, even though my choices are, I think she just said my choices. My choices are sometimes bad ones, but let's be real. Hitting jerks isn't all too bad. Don't hit people in real life, please. There was that whole thing. Like, remember that one dude who kicked a girl with a camera? Remember that? He roundhoused her.
Yes, that was insane.
That was insane. Don't do that.
Not nice.
She goes on to say, then I go for a full bad run for fun, especially on Mass Effect 2 on Omega is super fun on Renegade. I agree with that. Then I go full good run too. You know how effed up if Paragon Shepard hits you in the face? Yeah. Also, Paragon talking down the reporter is so satisfying seeing her struggle to come up with a response. I know what she's talking about. There's a scene in the first Mass Effect where your Commander Shepard and a reporter comes up to you and says some stupid crap, clickbaity stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And you can play the Renegade and just sock her in the nose.
Yes.
Or you can play the good guy and you talk her down from it, and she's like, but duh. It's funny. I like that. And then finally she says, Commander Nikki says, I sometimes have a huge problem with prematurely metagaming and thinking about what could possibly be the best answer or action. Life is Strange, for example.
Yes.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on that last one?
No, I agree. And that's pretty much how I play Life is Strange, because she's saying how she has a problem making those definitive decisions, whereas for me sometimes it's hard, but usually, like I said, I do what I think that person would do. I focus on their personality, and I feel like they wouldn't do certain things, or they would say certain things. And when I played Life is Strange, season 1, I was just that they're best friends. They wouldn't say that. She wouldn't say that to Chloe or something like that. And then same thing with season 2. It was just no, I mean, and there were situations where I was no, he's annoyed with his little brother. He'll say this, but in this situation, he's taking care of his brother. He would say this. And that's, I think, where you didn't get it, because you don't have siblings.
Yeah.
Whereas for me,
only child life.
You're shut up, Daniel. And I'm just no, Daniel, it's okay. And you're just shut up.
Yeah. Zach, if you're listening to this, you were annoying when I was growing up. Anyways, but I love you, kid. But yeah, so going back into the statistic, though, you have the 92%. You have people on Twitter saying that they do good runs first. Nikki saying that it's super. Even Absolute Prodigy saying that doing a full evil run is super hard. Now, these two people I know, one personally, one online. What's up, Commander Nikki? And what's up, Absolute? But I know for a fact these two people are super compassionate people. Mm-hmm. And that's the thing. They want her to fly. Especially Absolute Prodigy. He's one of the kindest dudes I've ever met. Mm-hmm. And that's the thing, is that the more gamers I know are super kind, compassionate, loving people. Yeah. Whenever we go to Long Island Retro, what's up, Long Island Retro? We just meet the nicest people all the time. Yeah. Not Calvin Cato though. Calvin Cato of Playable Characters Podcast.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. No, I'm just kidding. But that's the thing. They're super nice. But here's the thing. Talking about the 8% here. What about the 8%? And why are they so prominent? Let's say those 8% aren't the people. Argument's sake here. Conversation's sake, by the way.
They aren't the people who are just doing it for fun.
Right. They're not doing it for the content. They're doing it
consciously choosing the bad choices.
And what, conversation's sake, I know it's not the case. It might be 3% doing that.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, if you're playing in the first Life is Strange and you throw Pompidou's bone into the street, you're a monster, and I don't want to ever talk to you. But
yeah,
I don't care if you're doing it for fun. No.
It's not funny.
But
especially if you watched last week's episode.
True that.
Moving on.
But why are they so prominent in creating a toxic gamer reputation where, gamers are violent, gamers are toxic, the Gamergate? Why are they so prominent in making this culture, this kind of reputation in mainstream?
I don't think they're doing it on purpose to affect the gaming culture. Because again, I think you play your personality. And if that person's really struggling or going through a hard time, or if there's someone who doesn't know how to handle those tough situations,
yeah,
I think that's what they would naturally choose. Like I said, if you're a jerk in real life, you're probably going to choose to be a jerk in a game. It's subconscious. It's something that they're not thinking about. They're just like, yeah, this is the choice I would make.
Yeah.
This is the choice I like, that it's how they would react. Like when you think of teenage boys that have a lot of anger issues, their first thought when something goes wrong is to fight that person.
Yeah.
So of course in a game, they're going to end up choosing probably not the nicest side of that game.
Right.
Because in their head, that's how you handle conflict.
I'm just making sure there's not another comment on Facebook about, no, we got him. We got him, folks. I also want to put in the argument, and we say this all the time. We said this when we were working youth ministry, is that the negative voices, even the minority, they're the loudest.
Oh, yeah.
It's just the loud minority. And that's the thing. The majority that are telling you that it's good, like people are great, they're compassionate. It's always the negative comments.
Like politicians will say, look, 8% chose.
8%. Yeah.
You have 100,000 people playing this game. 8,000 of them chose to be a bad person.
Exactly. Yeah.
And that's what they'll say.
And that's the thing. They'll see it as the prominent. And not only that, but guess what? Mainstream media they need a scapegoat. They need it. And because the gaming industry is so young and so misunderstood, I'll say it like an emo kid. That's the thing. They're so misunderstood that they will go out of their way and say that, like, oh, look, like what you said.
Yeah.
This number played evil, so that means all gamers are evil.
You also have to think, I know video games, they still saw video games as this when we were younger, but when we were younger, they were more focused on rap music.
Yeah.
Rap music was what was making kids evil or bad when we were younger.
Yeah.
And so this is just today's new reason for bad kids.
Yeah. And now we have artists like Logic who are amazing.
Yeah.
But
so I mean, give it a few years, they'll find something else to blame.
And that's the thing, is that like I think it's just all about who can we pin the blame on.
Yeah. They don't want to blame
war.
They don't want to blame war. They don't want to blame mental health, which ultimately I think it's mental health. The reason people do bad things is mental health. And I said that earlier. I am sorry if I'm getting political or too serious, but every time something happens, everyone blows up. And it hurts me because I feel a lot. And
if I can share a story, as we're ending this podcast, because I'm seeing our time limit here. But actually, some of you online, I asked you on Twitter, like, how long do you like podcasts for? And most of you actually said an hour to an hour and a half. So
we're good.
Yeah. But if I could share like a short story, because you made me think about it. And it really is about like who are they blaming the victims on, and what stirs up more riots and clickbaity. When I was interviewing for youth ministry jobs, and I've interviewed with at least 150 churches, 150. Well, not interviewed, applied to. Interviewed maybe 50.
Yeah,
right?
something like that.
Something like that. I got a lot of people, like a good amount of it. I would say 8% would. But I got a good amount of people asking me about suicide. Because of course we're really in a time where suicide is prominent, and I think it does have to do a lot to do with social media being a spotlight on suicide attempts, because it wasn't known before because of social media. But anyways, they would ask me all the time, like, Adam, there's a lot of suicide in our community. What would you tell kids who are thinking about suicide, and what does the Bible say about suicide? And they would want to have an answer from me that says that it's unchristian to be suicidal or some crap like that. And I would
Yeah.
just stop the conversation clean with like saying like, well, first I would say to the group, not, oh, is it unbiblical to be suicidal? It's more unbiblical for the person who pushed them so much so to the edge where they had these thoughts, because it's a life of sin, a sin against you, by the way, not you sinning constantly that makes you suicidal. By the way, if any pastor says that, throw a rock at their head. Just going to say
Don't
that.
do that. Just don't talk to them again.
Also throw a rock at their head.
No.
But
Violence is not the answer, Adam.
it's my answer. But
I know.
I would tell them all the time that like it's more sinful for the person who has pushed them. Like, for example, a lot of kids are suicidal because they had extremely abusive fathers. Why is the kid who is having suicidal thoughts, being put on the blame here when it's actually the abusive alcoholic father, right?
Yeah.
That is the one to blame. That is the one who is sinful, so much so that they put these thoughts into the kid's head.
Yeah.
And that brings me back into, and I want to relate this back to our topic. That's a short story, by the way. Very small story, but I've actually had a lot of churches ask me that question. I'm like, are you kidding me right now? Anyways, but that's the thing, is that this 8%, they need something to put the blame on, because they don't want to put the blame on, abusive parents. They don't want to put the blame on war. Like war going on and you treating veterans like they're scum, like not giving them employment and stuff. Like they don't want to blame any of this, so they have to blame something. Like you mentioned before, in the 90s, it was a rap music. Now it's video. Well, it was video games in the 90s, but now it's more
prominently video games.
Right. And that's the thing. They need something to put the blame on, so they hide away from what's actually the
like
blame.
It's the country not taking care of its people.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
And that's the thing, is that this 8% is so prominent in making a reputation that gamers are immoral, toxic, violent people, is because there are some in our community. It's a fact. There are toxic people in the gamer community. But guess what? There's toxic people in every community. There's toxic people in sports.
I think it doesn't help that most of what when they bring this up, it's when school shootings happened.
Yeah.
School shootings are usually done by young men, and young men tend to play video games.
Yeah.
So they're like, oh, well, video games.
That's the thing.
Video games.
It's a sad coincidence that happens. Now, since we're wrapping up this conversation now, I want to really go into the topic here about some studies and data points and how gamers actually play their games. Naturally, when I said that this is an important statistic in terms of putting games into the mainstream, how this is very vastly important, we go into, is it intrusive, right? Is it intrusive to get these data points from these gamers, right? And I talked about the game, about it was a mobile game, and if you think of it, and you're in the comments on YouTube, write it down in the comments down below. What game am I talking about here? Where they actually gathered the way you play the game into treatments for dementia, right? And it's all about how. What my point is, I'm losing my train of thought. My point is it intrusive? Do you think it's too much to ask that gamers, like the way people play the games, into getting these data points and saying look how little violence there is in people playing their games? Do you know what I'm trying to say here?
Well, I was turning the camera back.
I know. I was trying to
not really. I have no idea what you're talking about.
Okay, let me repeat the question. Is it would it be necessary to collect data on others' gameplays, or would it be intrusive?
I think if it was a volunteer thing.
Yeah.
Don't be collecting data on mining it from the systems.
Yeah.
But if you wanted to do a study, don't tell people what you're studying.
Yeah.
Don't tell people anything about it. Just say, hey, we want to collect information of what you're playing and how you're playing. Is that, and sign a form, and they just see what choices you make in a bunch of games.
Yeah.
And like take someone who plays game, like that's their main source of entertainment.
Mm-hmm.
And just sorry.
Yeah.
And that's just you collect the information that way. Like they know that you're doing it, but they don't know what for. They don't.
I think it would be a really cool way to do it, like the way Life is Strange does, where at the end of each episode you get to see like how your choices compared to like others.
Yeah, like they tell you the results.
Or even Oxenfree or even The Walking Dead. You see like how players were and how you compare to like other people. And I think that would be a cool way to do like a lot of different games.
Yeah.
You know? And that data can be shown into, you know, the mainstream and saying like, listen, this is just one game, Mass Effect. Sure, 92% of people played the good guy. But here's another game where they're playing the good guy, and another game, and another game, and another game. And it's just like, not only is it an overwhelming statistic on the 92% in one game, it's a majority of games where they're playing the majority of the time playing the good guy.
Yeah.
I agree with you that it would be intrusive. Like you
need to tell them that you're collecting information.
Yeah. Or else it is kind of intrusive in that way.
Yeah.
But would you say that it's necessary to like put it into the mainstream that like, listen, there are so many games out there that they're playing the good guy?
Yeah. I mean, and also I think the worst part of it all is that people always want to blame video games, but they don't even realize that there are so many video games where there's not even an option to be bad.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there are games where you just play.
Like Animal Crossing. There's no way you can be bad in Animal Crossing.
There is a way you can be bad. You can be a real jerk in Animal Crossing.
Yeah, you can. There's no way you can be a jerk in Sims then. There's no way you can be a jerk in Spider-Man PS4. Huh?
I don't know anything about that game, so I can't.
Hey!
You clearly don't know simmers.
Simmers.
Murderers.
My goodness.
In the game.
Yeah. But I think that can wrap it up for our conversation. I think that, you know, kind of closing out our last piece of conversation, I think it's necessary, but I think it would be intrusive. And I think there would be a cool way to do it. And I think Don't Nod has a good way to do it. I think this whole way of Mass Effect saying like, listen, 92% of people will play the good guy. There's ways where you can collect data without it being intrusive. And I think game companies are on the right track here. And I think this is a huge building block in putting games into the mainstream. But again, I want to hear your comments down below about our conversation here. What do you think about game companies, you know, collecting your data to, you know, possibly do a study on, are gamers moral people? You know, write all of your comments down below, what you were thinking about as we were talking about it. I want to hear it all. I want to talk with you down in the comments. Yeah. So anything else before we close out?
Nope.
Cool. Every time, by the way, I'm so used to being a pastor at this point that every time I say like, all right, we're closing out, let's close out with prayer. Like, I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm just like, I'm conditioned.
Yes.
By the way, okay, another very, very quick story. Speaking about conditioning, my cousin, I'll say it, Tara. She's so conditioned as a Presbyterian that when we were watching a play in Sight and Sound, right, and the actor's like, okay, let us pray. Immediately, Tara just like bowed her head and like
she was so into it.
Yeah, this is a character saying like, okay, let us pray.
No, I've caught myself doing that watching shows. Yeah, like watching live theater or in movies. I was like, oh wait, not let us pray, but like other things I can't remember right now. But I've noticed that before. My face changes a lot when I watch shows. Like my face, I've caught myself like my face matching the like emotions on screen.
Yeah, I've caught you. I've seen you.
I catch myself. I'm like, oh, that's weird. I bet if someone saw that, they think that was weird.
I think it's endearing. So we thank you again for listening to this week's episode. Of course, you can find us on Twitter at Gaming Groceries, and you can find us on Instagram, Games and Groceries, all one word, and find us on Facebook, Games and Groceries. Just search for it on Facebook. It's the one with the pineapple on it. And again, if you haven't already, definitely hit that subscribe button and a notification bell so you know when all of these episodes come out. And if you haven't yet, definitely hit that like button if you did like this episode and share it with a friend who would like to hear a podcast just like this. So, again, thanks for listening to this week's episode. We all hope you have a safe week. Have a good week.
Bye.